In a time of deep division and uncertainty, the Supreme Court has delivered a rare unanimous message on the core of American democracy: free speech and presidential power. At a moment when the nation seems more polarized than ever, the justices have come together to remind us of the foundational values that unite us all, regardless of political affiliation or personal belief. 9 justices, representing every ideological corner of the bench, agreed. These issues transcend politics and demand unity. Their collective decision sends a powerful signal that, even in turbulent times, the highest court can rise above partisanship to protect the principles that define our nation. Their rulings are more than just legal milestones. They're a global signal that constitutional principles endure. Around the world, people look to the United States as a beacon of democracy, and the Supreme Court's decisions echo far beyond our borders, influencing debates about freedom and justice everywhere. When the court speaks as one, it's a warning against the slow erosion of freedoms and a reminder that the rule of law stands above partisanship. It's a call to vigilance, urging citizens and leaders alike to safeguard the liberties enshrined in the Constitution, and to remember that democracy is a living, breathing promise that must be protected. These decisions redefine the boundaries between government and the governed, and between official pressure and private expression. They clarify what it means to speak freely, to dissent, and to hold those in power accountable, fundamental rights that shape the American experience. As the world watches, the Supreme Court's voice is shaping not just America's future, but the global understanding of democracy. The impact of these rulings will be felt for generations, influencing how nations everywhere interpret the delicate balance between authority and liberty. In this video, we'll unpack these critical rulings, explore their origins, and examine their lasting impact on both the United States and the world. Join us as we delve into the Supreme Court's unanimous voice and what it means for the future of democracy. The recent battles over free speech didn't erupt overnight, nor did they begin with a single sweeping law. Instead, they emerged gradually, shaped by a series of subtle but powerful actions that often went unnoticed by the public. The story of how speech came under fire is one of quiet pressure, shifting power, and the blurring of lines between public authority and private enterprise. Rather than passing explicit bans, government officials began to quietly pressure private companies, especially those in media and technology, to silence voices and opinions they found objectionable. These backroom conversations and confidential meetings rarely made headlines, but their impact was profound. Regulators and policymakers would hint at possible investigations, regulatory hurdles, or even financial consequences for businesses that allowed controversial groups or individuals to speak freely. This indirect approach created a chilling effect, as companies weighed the risks of defying government wishes. Fearing public backlash, regulatory scrutiny, or loss of government contracts, private companies often complied, sometimes even going beyond what was asked. In doing so, they became unwitting agents of government censorship, policing speech in ways that would have been unthinkable just a generation ago. At the same time, the balance of power in Washington was shifting. Congress, facing complex global challenges, began delegating more and more authority to the executive branch. This expansion of presidential power was especially visible in the use of laws like the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. IEEPA was originally designed to give presidents special powers during genuine national emergencies, like wars or major threats to national security. But over time, its interpretation broadened. Presidents began using it to justify sweeping tariffs and trade restrictions, sometimes by labeling ordinary economic competition as a threat to national security. Critics from across the political spectrum warned that this was a dangerous overreach. By bypassing Congress, presidents could impose taxes, disrupt global trade, and reshape the economy, all with little oversight or debate. These two trends, coercion in speech and unchecked executive action, were on a collision course. The stage was set for a Supreme Court showdown that would test the limits of government power and the resilience of American democracy. At stake was more than just a legal technicality. The very separation of powers, the future of free expression, and the foundational principles of the Constitution now hung in the balance. The turning point came in National Rifle Association of America versus Bulow. The NRA accused New York's top financial regulator, Maria Vullo, of pressuring banks and insurers to cut ties with the group after Parkland. The Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, ruled that government officials cannot use their power to coerce private companies into silencing speech. Justice Sotomayor wrote, "Officials may express opinions, but cannot threaten or intimidate to suppress others' voices." The case was sent back to lower courts, but the message was clear. Regulatory power cannot be weaponized against free speech. This precedent now protects advocacy groups and businesses across the political spectrum. The Vullo ruling's impact was immediate and sent shockwaves through the media industry. It wasn't just a legal decision, it was a signal that the boundaries between government power and press freedom were being tested in real time. The situation escalated when the FCC's chairman, with the public backing of President Trump, openly threatened to revoke the broadcast licenses of stations airing Jimmy Kimmel Live. The message was clear. Critical or controversial content could put a broadcaster's very existence at risk. In response, broadcasters, especially those in the midst of seeking FCC approval for lucrative mergers, acted swiftly. Fearing regulatory retaliation, they suspended the show and pulled it from affiliate stations nationwide. The atmosphere in newsrooms and boardrooms was tense, as executives weighed the cost of defiance against the risk of government backlash. The timing of these actions raised immediate alarms across the industry. Was this a case of government pressure being used to silence media voices? Journalists and advocates worried that even the suggestion of official disapproval could have a chilling effect on what stories were told, and which were left untold. Legal experts quickly pointed to the Vullo decision, arguing that using the threat of license revocation to influence editorial content was a textbook violation of the First Amendment. They warned that such tactics, if left unchecked, could set a dangerous precedent for future administrations. The Kimmel affair became a real-world test of the Supreme Court's warning that government intimidation, even when implied rather than explicit, can chill free speech and undermine the independence of the press. Across the country, newsrooms grew uneasy. Reporters and anchors wondered if their own coverage might be next. Outside federal buildings, protests erupted in defense of free speech, as citizens recognized the broader implications for democracy. Yet the Vullo ruling also gave broadcasters a powerful legal shield. Armed with this precedent, media organizations began to push back, challenging government overreach and reaffirming their commitment to independent journalism. The stakes for media freedom had never been clearer. The entire industry was reminded that the fight for a free press is ongoing, and that vigilance is required to protect it from subtle and overt threats alike. The Vullo precedent was no longer just legal theory. It had become the front line in the battle for a free and independent press, shaping the future of American journalism for years to come. While free speech was under fire, the Supreme Court faced another test: President Trump's use of IEEPA to impose tariffs on allies by declaring economic competition a national emergency. Businesses sued, arguing the president had overstepped, bypassing Congress's exclusive power to regulate trade and levy taxes. Lower courts agreed, and the Supreme Court was asked, can a president declare any economic challenge an emergency to unlock sweeping powers? The justices, skeptical of such broad authority, signaled concern about handing the executive a blank check. Legal observers anticipated another unanimous decision, one that would restore the balance of power and limit unilateral executive action. The outcome would shape the future of American trade and the very architecture of government. The court's review of the tariff case centered on two doctrines: the major questions doctrine and the non-delegation principle. For major economic decisions, the president needs clear congressional approval, not creative readings of old laws. The power to tax is Congress's alone. Letting the president use IEEPA to impose tariffs would erase that boundary. The justices pressed the administration, highlighting the difference between regulation and taxation. Their questions made clear: IEEPA was never meant for broad economic policy. A unanimous ruling would push back against decades of expanding executive power, reaffirming that the presidency is bound by the Constitution and Congress's laws. The message: even in emergencies, the executive cannot rewrite the rules. The court was poised to draw a firm line for future presidents. The Supreme Court's decisions ripple far beyond U.S. borders. A ruling against unilateral tariffs restores predictability to global trade, reassuring allies and stabilizing markets. It signals America's recommitment to a rules-based system, not executive whim. The Vulo decision meanwhile sets a global standard for free speech, giving activists and journalists worldwide a powerful precedent. When the US judiciary defends press freedom, it inspires courts and civil society everywhere. These ruling stämmor för Brian reinforce America's role as a beacon for democracy and human rights. In a world of rising authoritarianism, the court's voice is a rallying cry for liberty. Legal scholars across the spectrum have praised the court's unanimous rulings as vital corrections. On tariffs, experts say the decision preserves the founders' vision. Congress controls the purse, not the president. IEPA was for true emergencies, not industrial policy or trade wars. The Vulo case, they note, simply applies classic First Amendment principles to modern government tactics. The government can't do indirectly, through regulators, what it's forbidden to do directly. The clarity and unity of these decisions make them hard for future officials to ignore. The court has drawn a bright line. Government power must never be used to silence debate or bypass the people's representatives. These unanimous rulings are more than legal victories, they're a defense of democracy's core pillars: free speech and separation of powers. The court has pushed back against executive overreach and protected the public square from government coercion. But the fight isn't over. Power will always test its limits, and new threats will emerge. The court's decisions give us tools, but lasting freedom depends on vigilance from citizens, a free press, and robust civil society. We must stay informed, support independent institutions, and resist subtle encroachments on our rights. The Supreme Court has spoken, but it's up to all of us to ensure those principles endure. Democracy's health relies not just on wise judges, but on engaged, watchful people. The verdict is in. Now, we must defend it.